had like a lot of interest in this discussion, and really excited to have Jay on as our guest. Like all of these things, the number one question we get is this being recorded, and will you follow up with a recording? If I need to drop off early or anything like that. So yeah, we're recording this. We'll share it in post. Usually takes about 24 hours for us to process all that. So should be coming out soon, so you can share it with your team and all that good stuff. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Q&A or chat. And so we used to have Q&A through Zoom, which actually is not as fun. So we have opened up the chat to anyone attending. Please try not to troll me. But if you have any questions, put them into the chat. And then Crystal here on our end from Common Room is helping field all those questions. And we'll be surfacing those to me instead of me scrolling through Zoom if there's the Zoom chat, if there's questions that I miss, after the presentation stuff. So let's just jump into the agenda real quick. The first thing is that I'm gonna like kind of set the stage for the discussion, and then Jay and I will go back and forth with a fireside chat for like 20 or so minutes. And then I'm going to go through a little bit more of like context and how to like execute these things, and even show a demo of how you can do them through Common Room. And then be sure to stay until the end. There's an exclusive offer for anyone who does that, and so I'll keep that secret so that people feel enticed to stay to the end. So with that, I'm just going to jump into things, and then I will intro Jay in just a little bit. So the first thing I wanted to start off with is kind of like a disclaimer of like what Common Room does and our bias, because it's good to know that how we're framing things from the get-go. So what Common Room does is we are a platform for helping teams generate pipeline more effectively, and we help from everything from signal capture to send, we like to say. So that includes everything from capturing signals on first party, second party, and even it's first party, second party, third party, and even AI going out and fetching and returning signals, which we've added recently. So this is of course a new thing, signal-based selling and signal-based go-to-market, which really plays well into ABM. The other thing we do really well is unify all those signals into a single person, and then person's a really big thing for ABM as well, and then roll that up to the account level, and then help with the orchestration or how to take action on those signals. So we'll be sharing more about that, and Jay will be sharing some of his experience too. But let's go back to setting the table of ABM and just kind of like where the market is right now. So the general thesis of ABM, and I really like to use this framework from the Angel VC, which I have stolen for other things, is in this top left quadrant of 10 to 10,000 accounts at this level of ARR is kind of like the ABM sweet spot. So like this is more like PLG consumer companies, and this is more like enterprise motion. And so for this upper left quadrant, that motion makes just a ton of sense for how to go to market. It's kind of like go to market the way it should be if that's your motion. And so this has kind of like led to this market of like, okay, if we can identify these accounts, like there's all these players that are in the space that are like, here's how to get in front of those accounts. So this is actually not a magic quadrant, but it's I pulled it. I like how it fits the screen a little bit better, but it's essentially like the big players in the ABM space. And this has been the case for the last 10 or so years. And so the way that these platforms work, and this is kind of like a primer on pulling back the curtain a little bit, is as a demand side platform, as it's called a DSP. And so what's actually happening and how Bidstream data works is essentially they're partnered with all these different publishers like TechTarget or Forbes or CNN even, and like there's hundreds of thousands of publishers that are on the web that these companies work with. And they figured out, hey, we know through data and enrichment the IPs of these visitors, and so therefore we can map those to different accounts. And so this became this whole industry of, okay, I'm an ABM marketer or an ABM demand gen person or in sales even, and I want to reach these accounts. Let's show them ads through demand side platforms. And so what essentially this has become is marketing's hammer for how to do ABM. So for if sales is coming to marketing and saying, hey, we want pipeline, we need to activate our user base, we need to improve conversion. It's all like, let's use one of these ABM platforms to do that. And so what ends up happening is marketers ruin everything. And so they'll uh, put ads everywhere and blanket these accounts with ads. Those ads will then trigger some sort of like scoring, like, oh, this account is researching this topic or whatever, and we'll be able to retarget them. And then that funnels intent back into one of these platforms. And so essentially you get kind of like this, you know, very, very loose, low intent score per each account that then is getting passed to the sales team. And so this is kind of where the sales and marketing misalignment goes. So what happens is sales comes and they're like, hey, we just named these accounts. Like these are the best accounts we want to go after. Marketing says, great, we've got the perfect thing. We're going to use one of these platforms and we're going to service ads to all of these accounts. And then when there's some sense of, they were served this many impressions, or they researched these, they landed on this page that was about this certain thing from TechTarget, that means that this account has intent. Let's pass it over to the sales team. But the problem with that is, like, you don't know the person behind the intent. You don't know if they bounced on that page. You don't even know if they noticed your ad. They might be using an ad blocker or something. And so what happens is when marketing's like, hey, we're sending you all these accounts that are great, sales is like, yeah, I can't actually action those. They're kind of garbage. Like, I've never been able to crack the code on those. So like, I'm just not gonna, they're a waste of my time. And so this is kind of like where the crux of sales and marketing misalignments today is happening. And so if to give you some empathy for the rep side of things, this is actually what a rep would see in one of these platforms that I'm not going to name, but you might recognize it. And so essentially, if I'm a rep, I'm going in and saying like, okay, one page viewed by an anonymous user. Okay, interesting. Two keywords researched from one anonymous user. What those keywords are maybe like helpful, but who it is, like, how do I find that needle in the haystack? Or a CRM opened an email in a CRM. It's like that is already part of like what you would see in Salesforce activity history. So in practice, like in concept, like this makes a lot of sense. Like, let's nurture and get these accounts primed. But when you're actually trying to action them, it's really, really hard as a rep. And there's a much better way now to do that, which is we have all of this data, all these signals and all this intent from different sources. And this is what Common Room does really well. And we should be instead of sending over to sales these like really light, low intent leads and prospects and accounts, we should actually give them actionable things that they can follow up on. So I'm going to pause here and let's go into the conversation with Jay, and let's bring Jay onto the stage. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen, stop share, and Jay, hello.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for joining. And then for context, I think Jay is the head of demand gen at Pipe, which is a really, really cool company. Like, maybe Jay, you could just kind of give us a quick background on your role before we get into the details here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So, um, I lead demand gen at Pipe. We're a financial technology company in the embedded finance space. So it's somewhat of a niche area. We build financial products and services for small businesses, and we actually partner with software platforms to embed our products into those platforms because that's where small businesses owners they spend their entire day. So we really minimize the friction and create easy access points for these financial services.
Yeah. And so you've been in the game for a long time now. Can you give us some history on your background with ABM and working with these vendors and like trying to make ABM work over like in your experience?
Yeah, it's funny. So whenever I think about this, like transition to ABM, I have this vivid memory of like call it 5, 6 years ago, I was managing marketing campaigns stuck in this MQL hamster wheel. And I'm doing a forecasting exercise with my boss at the time and going through, top-down conversion funnels. And we arrived to a place where we need like over 1,000 MQLs a month to hit our goal. And we're averaging 60 at our best moment in time. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so that kind of led me down this road of this idea of kind of hyper targeting at the front, being a little bit more mindful of the companies, and like you can even get to a named target account list. So I don't think it was necessarily like ABM was this aha moment for me, but through just understanding conversion funnels and trying to find economics of scale and demand gen, I kind of arrived to this place of hyper targeting, know your accounts, and let's go create compelling messaging to get them into the pipeline.
Yeah. When you
And
speak of the MQL hamster wheel, was that kind of like the in the time period where it's like, targeted account, like get them to fill out a form for an ebook, and then like that doesn't convert super well. I feel like I've been in that realm before, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way than doing this.
yeah, it went even higher. It went to like paid search on like broad match terms, and it went to, like everyone who signs up for webinars and MQL. And I think like a lot of that was just probably trying to hit the wrong KPIs, but it was also, a learning moment. And I think at that point in time too, a lot of that was kind of table stakes. And I think it goes back to some of the slides that you had earlier about there's this just misalignment between marketing and sales. Like we're knocking our MQL number out of the,
Yeah, yeah, we're
we're
crushing
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, we're crushing it. And the sales team is like, who are you passing me? They have no idea who we are. And
yeah,
so, that kind of that led to this moment is where like how can not only we create better campaigns, but then also like how can I align with the sales team on the stuff that we're doing and just really start to look at this as one team. And I think that's where ABM kind of plays a really cool role. And yeah, ultimately it's kind of where I live these days.
yeah. And so it sounds like there's pretty good sales and marketing alignment, or sales and demand gen alignment, at least at Pipe. Um, can you talk about like where your team, where your training, your org sits within marketing and sales, and do you have like a shared metric, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So at Pipe, the demand gen sits on the marketing side. I definitely play like a bridge between the marketing and business development side of things, but we've done a lot of work to really make a conscious effort to operate as one team. And I think to your point around like shared KPIs, we most definitely have shared KPIs. And I think it's more based on the funnel that we want to create rather than like your traditional like I'm responsible for X meetings or whatever it is. Like we're starting to look like what does an engaged account look like? What are the different areas that we can make an impact that and the signals that we can create for the BD team to have to be able to create a compelling message. As far as like my work, I primarily focus on the go-to-market strategy side of things. I run all of our paid programs. I dip into the nurture campaigns. But then a big part of like, especially since we're a customer of Common Room and we started working with Common Room has been like, how can we start to use these like de-anonymized signals to create a more of a compelling and more natural entry point to a lot of these accounts? And so I'm working pretty closely with our BD team to say like, okay, what's the recipe of signals we're looking for
Hmm.
that equate to like a high quality lead and a play that we want to scale. So that's kind of where
Can
I spend
you,
my time, and
yeah,
it's fun.
can you give us some examples of that? And one thing that I'm always thinking of is like, the old way of marketing was, to generate brand awareness or demand. Someone comes inbound, and now like audiences are pretty hesitant to do that. And it sounds like you're doing this as well, where your marketing's job is almost to like can now be like, let's generate as much signal as possible, and then that'll just help us inform which accounts our sales team should do warm outbound to. And so it's like you don't it's going up the funnel a little bit, because that's where the audience is going. Like they don't want to like fill out a form, or they don't want to like be overwhelmed with too much like marketing messaging and sales and stuff like that. So it's like just taking a little bit of a different approach. And I'm curious if like it sounds like that's your way of thinking of things, but maybe you could give some examples of like the different plays or different signals that you're trying to generate.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. It's really going up the funnel. And that's where, to me, like from a marketing and demand gen point of view, it's kind of like you take some of the handcuffs off. You're able to like really do what you, in your opinion, is good marketing because you can rely on these de-anonymized signals. And whether it's looking at like a ICP website visit, website surge, socially engaged decision makers, like all that kind of terminology within the signals. Um, that's, those can turn into KPIs. And instead of you working on like website conversions, which shifts your entire go-to-market motion, you're able to be like, okay, I need to create an engage, like I need to like look at engaged account as the like KPI around this campaign. What is an engaged account that my sales team, or in my case, my BD team wants to consider like primed, ready to for an outbound motion, like, and just work back those signals rather than being like, okay, the whole goal is to get a demo request form, or the whole goal is to do this, that, and that. You can kind of create more of a compelling story through these like multi-channel signals. That's honestly, it's and I would say the coolest part from it as well is the ability for you to look at your go-to-market approach very uniquely. And you're not relying on the same kind of data points that your competitors are looking at. As you're building out your ICP criteria, you're looking at things that really make a difference to the deals that you're pushing to close. And I think that naturally creates unique messaging. And so I'd say like the further up you can go with those KPIs, and rely on de-anonymized signals and that type of thing, your motion will be a lot more natural, I think, in the buyer's eyes.
It's like almost like you have you're like mind reading, and when you reach out, it's like, oh, that really makes a lot of sense. I resonate with that, is like what the audience says on the other end in a way.
Totally, right? And I think like you can do it in a natural way. I don't think you need to be like, hey, I saw you liked our ad, or hey, I saw that
Yeah, that'd be creepy.
yeah, I think like that's where creativity comes in. And that's where I think it gets really fun on the marketing and BD side, is like, how can you use all these signals and these de-anonymized data points to create a compelling message, and like layer on the research that you've done, and layer on just the insights that you have about all the stuff going on at that account. Because that's really unique, right? And when you talk about getting above the noise, or show me you know me, like all those kind of terms, you're naturally getting to that point through forcing yourself to be creative and not be that, creepy follow-up.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so hopefully you can share some of the secret sauce, and it's okay if you can't, but I always get the question like, what plays specifically are you running that are working well? So I don't know if you can pull back into the like, think through like, okay, our team is running this play, it's working super well, or is it like the whole conglomeration of things? But I'm sure the audience is curious, like, which plays are working well for you, and maybe why that's the case.
Yeah, of course. So like we're very, very much ABM, and I think that's probably why you asked me to join. Is like we have a name to target account list, and we stay pretty close to that. We have an inbound motion, right? But when we look at like these different sales plays, it's very much ABM focused. And so I think we're looking at combinations of paid engagements, website visits, and then beyond that, it's like how many people within our ICP are surging on our website over a course of
Mm,
X amount of days, and like using the multipliers within these signals as kind of like a higher priority or a higher intent. So I think, we're not getting too crazy when it comes to like the complexity of these signals, but I think with ABM, account coverage is a big thing. And
yeah.
so that's something that we look at, it are these surges of like multiple contacts doing certain things. Um, Without sharing too much of the secret sauce, that's kind of like something that I look at, and we look at as a really important factor from our
Yeah.
promotion, really.
Yeah, that's a really we see a lot of people do it. The plays kind of depend on different things, where it's like if you have a large volume of product led, this which is not pipe for example, but if you have a large amount of product led signals, like that's usually like a very prescriptive play of like, okay, their trial period's ending, or like we want to
For
enrich
sure.
Gmail signups or whatever. But then like for an ABM approach, sometimes it's like, oh, we want to actually signal stack and see like, okay, when these accounts, or when people at these accounts are doing, more than this and this activity, and we know that that activity is pretty decent level of intent, like let's score it. And I'll go through some of this in the demo too. Like let's score it and then pass that over to sales, and then sales also gets the context. Is that kind of like a synthesis of what your approach is?
Yeah, for sure, right? And I think it's also like one thing that we're starting to notice is getting a little bit into the like deeper into the buyer's eyes in terms of like where else they're interacting. And one of the quick examples of this is like, are they interacting with any of the influencers in our space? Are
Mm,
they interacting with any of their social content? Or even further, like if you want to go into the competitive side of things, like are they engaging with your competitors? LinkedIn posts, for example. Like those are things that when you're really trying to get prescriptive within your ABM approach, and like from a BD's perspective, you have a named account that you're responsible for closing. You're trying to look at every avenue possible, and those are like these very prescriptive signals are a big thing for our motion. Which to your like it could be a little contrary to some of the more high volume and especially
Mhm.
PLG motions that some of the listeners might be in the middle of right now. I think that it's a pretty unique perspective from my point of view, but it's I think we're using the same data, but we're kind of slicing and dicing it and going to market with it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before we started here of like, do you start with signals first or you start with ABM, like your target accounts first? And I feel like there's probably like a line within like the amount of accounts that are in your serviceable addressable market or TAM where it's like, if it's 1,000 accounts, then like that's probably and like you can't sell outside of that. That's probably a start with account first and then build signal for that account. But if you are a PLG company and you're like, okay, how do I go from this PLG motion to a PLS motion? Then you have a lot of volume and you want to use that signal within that volume to like identify which accounts to go after. So you could go a lot of different ways. It really depends on your go-to-market motion.
For sure, right? And I think one thing that I'll plug Common Room again with the Rumi AI research is like to your point, we're building out name target account lists before we're thinking about the signals that we want. Well, in conjunction quite a bit, but we since we have a name target account model, we're very much running like plays that are specific to ICP criteria that we create. And by that I'm not talking about the revenue, like your average revenue size, company size, all those types of like filter, more traditional data points. We're using some of like the research components and turning them into filterable data points. So like, does company does company XYZ offer like this product feature? If that's a yes or no question, you can turn that into a filterable data point. So kind of
Mhm.
maybe getting into the weeds, but like you're able to use some of that ICP research at the front to tune your messaging, which becomes unique to the way that you want to go to market.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really important to us as well.
Yeah, I think if you think of like the traditional data vendors, like you were saying, is like, okay, it's pretty easy to find company revenue, even their tech stack, like stuff like that. But for your specific go-to-market motion, and you need something that's niche or bespoke, where it's like, I need to find this company's business model, I need to find their primary competitors, I need to find like, if they're opening new offices somewhere, like that data is not super widely available through a data vendor. Even then, it's sometimes expensive, and that's kind of where AI we've seen really shines. Where it's like, hey, AI, like I'm gonna write this prompt, and I want you to go fetch this and return it back to this account, and then that serves as an input for me to personalize and figure out like what my team should use to get into this account. And so it sounds like that's kind of like the area that where you're headed.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like when you're able to get to that layer of confidence as well, it's reflected in your messaging. And I think everything from the marketing side of things to the BD side of things, it's like we know this about you. We may not necessarily call it out verbatim in an email or whatever, but like because we've taken that time on the front end to ensure that we're looking at the right people and targeting the right companies, the confidence that we have with the flow, you take out that discovery stage essentially. It's more of
Mhm.
like the buyer, like learning more about the buyer readiness component of it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, one thing I skipped over a little bit was talking through your past and where you've seen, because I feel like a lot of the audience here is maybe like feeling the pain and like maybe can empathize with some of your pain from the past. So I'm curious, like where you've seen ABM fail and how to help the audience here kind of like see ahead of the curves so they don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I feel like I've said the word targeting like 15 times already, but I think like where a lot of companies will fall short on ABM is like not really putting an emphasis on the targeting component. I think like more of the emphasis is on like what content are we going to create? What's the handoff? What's
Mm,
the like what's the motion that we want to create look like? And all of that can be perfect, right? But if you haven't targeted the right people at the right companies, nothing's going to land. And then you're going to be like, all right, well, this whole ABM thing is not getting us to where we need to go. We need to go back on this MQL hamster wheel, or we just need to go back to like segmentation or like whatever that may be. Um, so I think like really being diligent about your targeting can make a huge impact on the way that you on ultimately the success of your campaigns.
Yeah, I feel like there's a similar analogy to like content that you create, where it's like you create content and then spend all this time on the content creation, but then you don't make the title have a good hook, or you don't figure out how to do the distribution. And I feel like that's pretty analogous here, where it's like if you don't put the time into like targeting the audience the right way, then it's all for naught, because you're not the whole thing of ABM is like right person, right message, right time. And if you have the wrong person, then it's like not it's gonna be failed from the start.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of the stuff that I do is like taking prospect calls as well and sitting in on customer calls and just hearing what they're talking about. I mean, that's your entire, that can be your like an entire channel of content is just that feedback wheel. And that's something that we rely on too, right? Is like not only do we want to make sure that we're targeting the right people at the right company with the right message at the right time, but we want to make sure that we're speaking their language as well. And I think that going deep on customer insights is another area where we see a lot of success too.
I don't want to spill the beans too much here, but it's also a new signal that we're pulling into common room from call transcripts, so that can be used to
Huge. I'm a
inform.
huge fan of like where all that stuff is going. Like a lot of the stuff that Gong is doing on pulling in AI summaries of transcripts and just what they're doing at scale around that type of thing is cool. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, coming very, very soon. So excited for that launch. Um, cool. I think we covered like a good amount of ground. We talked through where you've seen ABM work. Maybe to round things off here, you got to talk about the future as well. Is like where you kind of see things going, like what the future looks like for Pipe, and like how I don't want to say how you see AI fitting into it, but it's inevitable at this point. So yeah, if you could tell us like what your dream scenario where things are going, I think that'd be helpful for the group here too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I look at AI as like the ultimate research engine for us, and I think that when we look at ABM, like again, like we're not only do we run ABM because it's a big motion that we want to do, but we're pretty prescriptive, and there's also some pretty strict criteria about the companies that we can work with, and so like using an AI research engine to almost like filter out the like my TAM at any one point is like that allows me to be extremely efficient in the way that I go about going to market. I think also too, like layering in, and I mentioned earlier, but some of the like starting to look beyond your traditional KPIs and starting to layer in signal-based KPIs as some of like the
Mm,
key metrics that you're looking at as far as success. That's going to allow marketing teams to get to kind of like again take the handcuffs off and start doing pretty creative campaigns.
yeah.
You still need to be regimented about like the performance of it and like you can't solely base a campaign off of like ICP liking your
Yeah, yeah.
your social images or whatever, but like it kind of allows you to go higher up the funnel and therefore really kind of like start to look at things in a more creative lens. So I think the combination of AI from research and then also like looking at like KPIs and performance metrics from a de-anonymized point of view is going
Hmm.
to allow us to like really do some creative things.
Yeah. There's some audience questions which I wanted to ask you, but first I have to ask you a follow-up to that is if you can share any specifics of on the like KPI side of things. Is it like you want it, because I can see it going a couple ways, where it's like you want this account or this lead to reach a certain like score threshold based on the number of signals, and like marketing is generating or demand gen is generating those signals, or is there like a specific signal that you're like, okay, if they do this, then we want to pass them over to the sales team.
Yeah, I'd say it's a combination. Like there's like the account coverage signal type thing. And a lot of those are kind of like the calculated fields that you'd start to create. Like how many ICP website visitors have I had? How many like people within the buyer's org are doing a certain thing? That's
Hmm.
kind of the coverage. But then also like based on the signals that you want to proactively start to create plays for, like how many people are meeting that goal. And so like this the signal recipe or the signal stack can almost be a KPI in itself and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
also like that account coverage. And again, like it kind of goes back to the motion that you want to create. And so a lot of this stuff may sound like a little vague, but it's really like we've done a lot of work on the front end to understand like what's the motion that we feel confident in. And so how can we back up to like now that we have all these cool tools, how can we like create KPIs that actually matter for our motion and not be stuck in the realms of the things that we can track on the conversion side or
Hmm.
that type of thing. And
To
so
get you back on the MQL hamster wheel. Yeah. Yeah. Just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
because you can do
yeah, yeah,
attribution or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, of course. So I would say like those are kind of the two areas.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Okay, so turning to the audience now, Steve's asking a question around landing pages or using custom landing pages. Is that something you do or consider? I know that there's like a whole market around that. So,
Yeah, for sure. I don't use necessarily like a full like landing like customized landing page builder. Like I know there's 1,000 of them out there. But we are most definitely like we have in the past actually like we've gone to create an entire branded experience for companies. It depends kind of like where the
mhm.
what tier they are, if you will,
Right, right.
market they are. But I think yeah, I would say yes, but then also like we're not going overboard with a lot of that stuff. We're kind of relying on some of our like foundational messaging to make an impact there.
Yeah, I have a really a really great question from John here. He says the biggest challenge for me is getting sales to act on all the great signals and insights that his team's delivering. Do you have any tips for how to get that alignment between sales and enforce those SLAs and all that kind of stuff?
Totally. And I think like this is something that when I first started like pitching this type of approach, signal-based selling and looking at like a socially engaged contact as a high quality contact to pass over to them, they start to look at me like, you want me to tell someone that I saw that they liked and it's like, so you got to get past that. But I think like coaching creativity and then also showing like from my point of view, like I think I'm especially like a visual learner, and so just creating some sequences and creating content around it to try and familiarize the like a BD team that may not have this type of motion in mind with what a flow looks like. Just taking that extra work and coaching a lot. I don't think that there's a perfect answer for that, and I think each
Yeah.
BD team might adjust differently.
Yeah. If anyone's getting that objection of, I don't want to mention that I saw this website visit or this social engagement or whatever. I don't know, Crystal, if you can like dig through my LinkedIn, it's probably going to be a mess. But I have written some content around like how to follow up on those signals without actually mentioning the signal itself. And so it's usually around like, there's some language to soften it up. It's like, this might be top of mind for you right now, and then like talk about the topic that is related to the signal or whatever. There's a way to do it, or even then, if it just could be just for prioritization too. It's like we want to prioritize these accounts or this contact because they did these things. You don't necessarily need to say like, hey, I saw you visited our terms of service page or whatever.
Yeah, and I think like that can go back to like what's like unpacking something around the like show me you know me that may not be behavioral.
Yes,
But
yes.
it may be something along the lines of like more of the firmographic side of the things that that there's a bit of an awareness coming through and there is that like anonymous engagement, but then kind of like use that just as you said, like you don't even have to like really mention that, but use another trigger that you may be working through to personalize it.
Yep, yep. Cool. Well, that's a good callback to tie everything together. Jay, thank you so much for your time. For the rest of the audience here, is there any plugs you want to get in around how people can follow you or use Pipe or anything like that?
Yeah, well, first off, go to pipe.com. We love website visitors and we
Oh,
also
there you
love
go. See it in
feedback
action.
on our product. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta do it. And then yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Jay Sailing. Connect with me, follow me, and happy to answer any questions and just jam on stuff. I think like I'm a lifelong learner with this and this is like an area where I love to talk through clearly. So happy to connect and brainstorm more.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much, Jay. Feel free to
Yeah.
sit on background or bounce if you want, and I'll go
Cool.
back to the rest of the talk here and demo.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. All righty. That was great. Really good stuff from Jay. So now I want to go back into kind of the rest of the story where it's like, hey, we painted this picture of what's challenging with ABM now, and like now I think we're getting into the stage of what I would call is the golden age of ABM, with all of those like signals and taking a more holistic, actionable approach to ABM. And so I created this slide around like what is the old way and how is the new way, how is the new way different? And so a lot of it is around the old way is kind of like just, and it wasn't wrong at the time. It was more just like these are the limitations that we have for doing some sort of ABM approach. And now the new way is, there's a lot more technology and things available that make this new way possible of, and I think the golden holy grail of ABM is the ability to reach the right person. Right person is a keyword there, at the right time with the right message. And so the old way was much more account based. The signals were low intent, like I was saying earlier, around their a keyword from someone that landed on a tech target site is not like the highest scoring signal or the highest intent signal. It's often a black box as to like why an account would have this high score. It's marketing first. It's all based on ads, and then there's like, of course, no AI component to it. 10 years ago, that was not really a thing. And so this new way of doing ABM, and especially using signals and AI, is person first, and like unifying that person's activity within the account. It's higher intent and more actionable signals, and even at the account level, there's more actionable signals like job listings and things like that are more than just some person somewhere researched this topic. We're transparent with scoring, so you actually know what the actions and the signals that are happening to drive up that score, and then the sales team can use that as context for how to reach out, like Jay was saying. This all creates more go-to-market collaboration and alignment. In fact, I have a proposal to rename ABM because it's not just marketing. And of course, there's like AI across all of these things as well. So I'm kind of workshopping this a little bit. And there's two things I'm trying to sneak in. One is person first, because person first ABM, because knowing the person behind the action just makes such a big difference for the sales team. Even if it was a black box, is like, at least I know the person who's doing this thing, versus like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And then the ABGTM part of it is that it's kind of a team sport. It's not just marketing doing these things in a silo, or sales, trying to like figure this out on their own by, spinning up their own events and stuff like that. It really should be a team collaborative sport. So if I were to rename the category, it would be person first ABGTM. I don't know if that's going to stick, probably not, but we'll see. And then let's cover some examples of like what that new world looks like before I actually jump into the demo. We have a decent amount of time here, it looks like, to before I actually walk through common room. So this is a quote from Jay. Jay was just on the call here, and we kind of shared some of the stuff that they're doing. A few things, and this is more like top of the funnel, and Jay's in demand gen, so this makes more sense where it's not like it's more like marketing generating signals and passing those over to the sales team. So social listening is one thing that he mentioned. They're also tracking website activity, and then using all that data and building up all of those scores to pass over to say like, oh, this account has reached this threshold. Like, let's have sales prioritize and work that account. I think Jay covered this quite well in our talk. And so I'm going to go to the next example. So on the sales side of things, it's maybe like a little bit further down the funnel. And Notion is one of our customers who's like doing this really well. Like, their whole sales team is taking these signals and prioritizing accounts based on them and running these types of plays. So they're one of those accounts that has a lot of PLG data. I mean, like, so many people use Notion. And because they're able to understand the person and enrich all of the parts of the user journey behind the product's led data, they're able to then prioritize, okay, this target account is doing like this, and this in the product. They reach this threshold. Let's take action on that. They also have a ton of website activity, and then they're also doing, job change and hiring trends. And this is more on the sales side. So these are more actionable signals and plays that someone like Notion is running. And there's a whole customer story on our site around what Notion's doing. So maybe Crystal can share that. I didn't come prepared with that link, but it's on our customers page. And then the last kind of group that you could say is kind of orchestrating and doing everything behind the scenes is on the revenue operations side of things. So like, once Pinecone is a really good example of that. And so on the operations side, it's kind of like looking at the holistic funnel for everything from top of funnel and demand gen to how sales is performing to pipeline and revenue creation, and then using that as a way to inform and orchestrate that whole pipeline motion from, okay, this is a light signal, this is like what marketing is investing in. We're going to roll out different like settings and scale for like who should action what and by what role. And so you probably heard of the term like go-to-market engineer. So revenue ops is kind of like the person behind the scenes, like making sure that like, okay, we're acting on these signals, we're prioritizing these accounts, we give this much budget to marketing to generate these signals, and like we're going to make our whole entire end-to-end flow much more efficient, because my charter as a revenue operations person is to generate as much revenue as efficiently as possible for our company. And so, this type of role is really kind of like pulling all the strings, and especially at like a larger like enterprise type of account, there's so many different like facets in like different types of architecture that is needed. This is a good way for them to get a picture of everything and then make sure that they scale that to the rest of the team. Okay, and so I put the slide in here because yes, marketers will do marketer things, and there's still a way to do the advertising side of things using signals to inform how you reach people on LinkedIn. And so this is one of the links that we can share, is essentially using, finding which accounts are reaching all these signals and then syncing those over to LinkedIn to generate more signals. We have a whole playbook around this, but I wanted to just throw this in there to say like, yes, you can still do things the old demand gen way, and it's not wrong to do them. It's more of just like part of the mix versus like being the end all be all for ABM. Okay, so putting it all together with Common Room before jumping into a demo, this is kind of like the different pillars of what Common Room does. It is capturing signals from essentially, we want to be the place to capture every buying signal possible. And we're just continuing to increase our signal library and grow that over time, so that whenever there's an intent signal within an account or a person, that it's all centralized in one place. And so this is something we do really well. We keep on adding more and more integrations and more signal and AI to go capture that signal as well, if it's a niche signal like Jay was talking about. And so this part of our product is really like the input that's needed in order to like execute ABM the right way. The other like really critical piece of criteria is not only like getting these signals, but if they're in a silo, if you're creating you're not able to connect this person. Erica was the same person who visited our website, who is engaging with a competitor on social, who changed jobs recently. If those are all disconnected and siloed, then you can't really do that signal stacking or scoring to understand which person to reach out on an account and why, and then roll that up into an account score to prioritize that account. And so the unification of what activities are happening, what buyer intent is happening, on top of the ability to enrich these people so that you know who they are, if they're in your target account list, if they meet your criteria of like who would be in your serviceable or total addressable market. Like these two parts are super critical to being able to like do ABM in this more efficient, scalable, productive way. And then the last thing is just being able to action on all of these things. And so by combining these two different things together is like, oh, this account has reached this score. Let's nurture them through a dinner or something like that, like taking action on those things and putting together the pieces of what's happening, who's the person or the account behind that, and then like what activation do we want to do. This is again like right person, right message, right person, right place. And so this ability to like take action on these signals, and even using AI to like help out and like use signals as an input and personalize outbound, is a almost like a new must-have for today's new world. And so I did want to mention that there is an AI layer and component to all of this. And one thing that like in order to make the actionability and like all of these things effective, is to have good inputs from that the AI can use to work on. And so by way of having these two pillars of AI can go capture the signals, AI can also be trained on the signals that are captured out of the box or through an integration partner or something like that. This is all kind of like the inputs of quality data that help inform your outbound motion. And then again, unifying and connecting that all to the same person allows the AI to be like have confidence and train to like say, hey, we're going to recommend this message, or hey, we're going to research this account and pull in this information that is really helpful, like Jay was saying, for you to like get into that account with a unique take on that's more differentiated from a competitor. And so we see AI as being like an agents being able to like help out with every step along the way of the pipe gen process. And I know I've been talking a lot, like, so let's go in and do it all live. Okay, so I'm going to jump into common room here. Actually, I'm gonna go blow this up. So this is kind of like I wanted to run through like 4 different use cases, 2 for sales, 2 for marketing, and then like RevOps would kind of like be orchestrating all this stuff. So the first use case is kind of like what Jay was talking about, is prioritize named accounts by intent scores. Like these accounts are accumulating all this score, and this is like what you want your sales team to act on. And so if I jump in here in common room, we have these different 4 plays I've mapped to these here. And so this is what we call a segment. It's like a group of accounts who have done a thing, or a group of contacts who have done a thing that make them part of this cohort. And so here we can see, this is like would be a sales play. It's like accounts in my book of business who have a score of 95 or higher. And so if you look at these accounts, you can see if you hover over any of them, like why they have an excellent score. So this is kind of like that black box part that's being transparent now. Is like you can see that they visited your website, they've provisioned this many seats, they have this sales headcount or these attributes. So like this is kind of giving the rep the context that's needed to at least a starting point of like what's going on at this account. And so if I click into the account, we then get a like kind of like an overview of even further detail of what's happening in that account. So I can look at AI research and we can say like, oh, let's go pull, let's use AI to find things that are interesting about that account, like what the security looks like, what their competitors look like, all these things that may help us inform our go-to-market motion. And not only that, I'm going to put this on demo mode so I don't blow up anyone's spot. One sec. Come on. Okay, so if I click into each account, any account here, we can then see the contacts within the account, and those contacts also have a score. So, say if I wanted to reach out to Olaf here, all I would, as a rep, I can say like, okay, this is an account, this is the right person at this account. I'm going to click into Olaf, see all of his data, see he's visited the website, and then craft a personalized message to send out to him. And then once I do this, then maybe I'll check off this account from my target account, from my list, and then go to the next account in the priority order. So essentially, like this is a high level way of saying like, here's all of the signal unified to this account, and it gives you all the context needed as a rep to go in and fish and prioritize that account. And this is, I would say, is like almost like the crawl walk period of like ABM. And I'm going to get into like a more specific example with automation and stuff like that in a sec. But before doing that, I did want to highlight, I'm going to go out of demo mode here. I did want to highlight that the feature that Jay was talking about. It's like, okay, we know this account. We want to like figure out things about this account, find signal from with this account to help us with our go-to-market motion. And so you'll see on any of these here that you can, if I click into them, you'll see this like little sparkle here, and that means that we've had our AI research agent go out and find signal from that account and then return it back to the account here. So you can see like business model, risk analysis, all this kind of stuff. And if I wanted to just add a new account to that mix, I can select them and say like AI go fetch this. Or if I click on Plaid here and click on AI research, this is going to go out and fetch that data that we care about and return it back to this account. So it's essentially taking out that step of doing that like discovery process, like Jay was saying, and like doing it all in a matter of a minute or so. And so if you look at what's happening on the back end for pulling in that account research, you can see anything that has this show here is like, what is their business model? What is their earnings call look like? And you can see that this is all just driven by a prompt, and then the prompt is informing the AI of what signal to go grab and pull into this account. So it's really powerful stuff. And then you can even use this as a variable for how to personalize outbound messages, which I'll show in a bit too. Okay, so if I go back, I don't know if that one's going to be done yet. Actually, I forget which one I even clicked on. But if it was customer AO, it should be like returned now, or it takes like a minute or so to return that. And you can create any new fields or anything like this and use them, which is super powerful. Okay, so let's say we check this one off the list. The next one I wanted to cover is actually at the like contact level. So you're a rep, you know that these contacts have done something super specific. So they visited a pricing page and they're in my book of business, and like I'm going to work that account. So if you wanted to do that, we have another segment here. This is essentially like a play of like pricing page visitors who are economic buyers. Economic buyer we have as a default setting of like they're a director level title or above. Um, and I'm the owner of this account. So we have 11 people here who have matched this criteria. And so I'm a sales rep. I'm going to jump in and be like, okay, these are my named accounts. These are people who have done something specific on my named account. I'm going to click onto Blake here, and I can verify that he's visited the pricing page, which we can see that activity here. We can also see all other sorts of activity and signal happening within Blake here, and say I want to send Blake a message, like a touch. So we can have actually AI draft that for us based on all of his signals. And so I'm going to click on draft message here and click on this website visit. And again, this is website visit, no page mention. So it's not going to mention that he visited a page. And we're just simply creating a prompt that's going to create a personalized message like this that hits on the like timeliness and the specifics of things that Blake it's Blake, right? Yeah, Blake cares about, and connects it to a customer story or a pain point or something like that. So it generated this message here. I can copy this, or I can also add Blake to a pricing page sequence that'll inject that message into it as well. And if I was going to do this at scale, I can select multiple people and add them to outreach, and kind of like do this. It's almost like a burn down list and a prioritized list for me as a rep to act on. And I know these people are the best people to reach out to because they're in my accounts and they've done this activity. And this will just replenish over time as marketing is generating more signal for me to work off of. Okay, so oh, one last thing I wanted to show there is actually the prompt behind that personalized message. So if I go to Rumia here, activate, this is the like kind of like the AI SDR part of Common Room that's going to like generate those messages. And so if I go to no mention, if I can spell it right, wait, maybe I just do mention. There we go. No page mention, that's why I missed it. You can see behind here is like you're an expert SDR writing an outbound message using intent infer from website visit activity, use website activity. So we're actually like calling out the specific signal that's happening here. And if I wanted to say like job change or whatever, I can use that as a signal too to inform the agent to know which signals to use to inform that personalized message. So it becomes to be like really, really powerful stuff once you're capturing all these signals and then you're using those signals as inputs for the AI, which I think is super cool. Okay, so I'm going to check this other one off the list here. The other things I wanted to cover are marketing AB GTM use cases. So if I go back to Common Room here, I can then look at let's look at a different segment, a different play, and this is a marketing play. So this is dark funnel qualified leads. And so these are all leads who have visited more than 2 pages and then have liked our company handle on LinkedIn within the last 12 weeks. And so the kind of the gist behind this cohort of people here is that it's pretty light signal. It's not signal that's high enough for us to pass over to the sales team per se, but we do want to, or sorry, it's enough signal that we want to pass over to the sales team. But it's maybe something that like the sales team wants to review, like a qualified lead, and then decide whether or not to work it or not. And so if I click into any of these people here, I think I can pick on, let's pick on Don. We should be able to see that he has enough website visits or enough intent there to like take him over the threshold. So that marketing wants to take credit for passing over these leads and getting attribution for themselves. What we can do from here is select all of these leads, and I can add them to a HubSpot workflow or a Salesforce campaign. And essentially what this will do is take these leads who have done have shown signal, they're de-anonymized, they're actual contacts, they meet our threshold for criteria, and then pass them over to the platforms that'll say like, oh, mark this as a qualified lead. I can count that as a marketing metric. Like this would be like a goal metric that like Jay was talking about earlier. And essentially, this is essentially pushing in leads that sales can review and work. that not necessarily that haven't necessarily like requested a demo or anything like that. So this is a way of tracking and attributing all the good stuff that marketing is doing, and being able to take credit is one way to put it, but it's also more just like, identifying like the new way of doing things, and then passing over quality stuff to sales versus like, someone downloaded an ebook somewhere, or someone saw this ad or whatever. It's like that's not super actionable, where like this is a lot more high fidelity signal to action on. Okay, so I'm gonna check this one off, and then the last one I wanted to show is it's kind of in a similar vein. It's like you have accounts that have a good intent score, a good signal score, but like in order for a marketing team to want to pass that over to sales, you want to reach that excellent signal score threshold. And so these are all tier 2 and tier 1 and tier 3 accounts. These are named accounts that have a good score, but they haven't necessarily reached the threshold to like where they're excellent, like the ones up here, which sales is working. And so what we want to do is, as a marketing team and a demand gen team, generate more signal so that those accounts do reach that threshold, and then they'll be passed over and worked from sales. And so what we can do as a marketing org is, you can just export this at a very like simple, in a very simple way. Sorry, I think I need to click into the actual account here and click export. And so this will generate a CSV. I can take the CSV of accounts, I can put it anywhere into any ad platform and start targeting the right people at those accounts, which is cool. It's kind of manual, so instead of doing that manual work, we do have really powerful workflows and automations. And so I can take that same segment, and I've created this workflow here, and I'll click edit and zoom in a little bit so people can see. And you can see, okay, it's running this workflow daily for the set of accounts. And so you can see that we are identifying accounts in this segment. That was the segment I was just showing. They're good, and we need to nurture them and move them into an excellent score. And then the next thing we're going to do is prospect people within those accounts who fit our ICP. So you can see here, it's using title. You can use any number of different criteria to select who to prospect here. And so say if I want a CEO is maybe too high of a title, I'm going to close that out. I'm going to add a filter for title and say maybe like GTM engineer. And I can select that. And so it's going to then prospect 5 people. I can set this to 20 if I want to like, go wide with it. It's going to find the 10 or 20 people or however many people you want from that account. And then it's going to add them to this other segment. And then the last thing I can do is add a step here and this is a little bit of a not a workaround, it's a way to get leads into LinkedIn. So I can send details to webhook, I can add step, and then this is the article that Crystal shared earlier of how to get LinkedIn leads. Let me see if I can find the right Zapier. So this will send a webhook to Zapier, and then Zapier will then build an audience in LinkedIn. When we have that whole playbook that you can follow to do this, and I can click save, and then this will just automatically build those audiences in LinkedIn, and then we can do whatever we want on our marketing side to generate signal, and then that signal will then pass over these accounts and these contacts to the sales team. And so, I know I've been going fast and covering a lot. I think that checks off that box. And I'm happy to stay over for any questions. We have only a minute left, but let's get after it. Sorry. One thing I should be remiss if I don't do this. Last part is we're offering a 2x the amount of free trial for anyone who is on this presentation. So that gets 30 free days of common room on our team plan, and then also 5,000 in AI credits. Take advantage of that, sign up for common room, or send me an email, and all you need to do is mention that you heard about this offer through this webinar. And a plug to follow me on LinkedIn.